of the vote first round. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that Manny and Jack maybe might split a little bit of the Area 6 vote, and that might lead it to him to get over the 50% mark.
Well, it'll be interesting. We'll find out.
Yep.
Shortly.
Is the echo gone?
Yeah, we're good. Thumbs up, buddy. Welcome to the Practical Pistol Show. My name's Ben Steger. We're here to answer your shooting questions. Today, as usual, Matt Hopkins is here.
Hi.
And not as usual, Ken Nelson's here.
Howdy.
For people who don't know Ken, well, man, how do you introduce Ken? He's the mastermind behind Practiscore. And you've run, how many nationals have you run?
2.
We're in 2 USPSA national matches, which is pretty interesting.
And a steel national, or world,
Yeah.
right?
Worlds, yep.
Trying to think of other noteworthy things. Your kid's pretty good at shooting.
Yep.
Interesting. That's all I got. Ken, you can't shoot for shit yourself, can you?
I'm a 75% shooter.
Well, that's not too bad. Like 75% at nationals?
I don't remember what I was at last nationals. I am a very injured man, so for years I've had trouble lifting the gun up to eye height. So for me to perform at that level, I'm happy with. That's about all I'm going to get.
All right. Well, excellent. So, Ken, you're here to talk with us about, well, anything we wanted to ask you about.
Anything you want.
All right. So, first and foremost, you got involved in some drama with, I don't know, with USPSA, something to do with you're not going to run the Steel Challenge match because you didn't get paid for 2 nationals. Or something.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't that exact statement, but...
No, I don't know, so you got to enlighten me.
All right, well, so we ran 2 nationals, and when we ran the last one, we USPSA, I wouldn't call it the smoothest running organization.
What?
But I'm also not going to lay it all on them. Basically what happened was a lot of miscommunication. For instance, and also the size of the match, right? If you tell me, hey, Ken, go run an area match, 14 stages, I got that much stuff laying around, right? I got that much stuff and more laying around. I don't have really any build costs for props or anything. I have put up the stage type costs, but I don't have to go out and build hundreds and hundreds of walls. So what happened was miscommunication. I'd be texting Phil pictures of walls we're building, and he'd be saying great, and then they promised walls from Tulsa, but then they never happened, and then the range master and I are.
Why the shit would they bring you walls from Tulsa?
Well,
isn't it easier just to build you more?
Well, I don't think they were planning on having any more events there, so they had a couple hundred walls there.
I see.
And I happened to, my boys on the 3 Gun Nation Pro Tour, so I was going to be in Tulsa anyway with a truck, and I could haul a trailer and bring it back. Anyway, all these, I'd say, miscommunications sort of added up to nationals being more expensive than they were expecting. And I'll take blame on that.
Can you give us numbers? Because I did read that there was something with the discrepancy, or somebody didn't like how much money it cost or whatever. I mean, how much money are we really talking about here?
32 grand.
Okay, so that's not, I mean, that's substantial, but that's not crazy money when it comes to running a nationals, right?
No, I thought it was a bargain, to be perfectly honest. Considering all the costs they didn't have, like they sent no build people. I mean, we did the whole thing with local staff and volunteers. The day after nationals, nobody from the organization was there. We were left to clean it up. And also, it was huge. I mean, you were there. A lot of stuff.
I thought it was great. I really liked the stages. I thought it was a good match.
I thought it was the best nationals I've attended so far.
Thanks. Thanks. That means a lot. You guys are I think, good judges.
I'm going to agree with that. It was the best nationals I've attended also, but I'm not saying that to agree with Hopkins.
Okay.
I'm saying it to stroke your ego, Ken.
Duly noted.
Okay.
So what happened was, just a series of miscommunications, and I kept totally quiet about it. I mean, I kind of knew that they were working through it, and I felt good that eventually a check would pop, and it did. I try not to personalize issues like this. I'm a business guy. That's not how you get things done in business. And what happened was it sort of rose to the level of the board. They saw it. I think enough of them had run large matches and kind of got a feel for what was going on. And, basically a few weeks later it was done. So, I'm good with USPSA. I run USPSA matches every month. Committed to it and move on.
Okay, what was the timeline then, in total, from the end of the Nationals to when you got paid? How long are we talking?
Well, in terms of from when we would have, it was probably 8 months. It was a long time for a club our size. I carried the cost of the Nationals for 8 months personally.
Would you be willing to run Nationals again in the future?
Yes, especially with the changes that they're putting in place about having contracts, and because a lot of this happened because I would have liked to have had a contract, but things kept changing. Right. Well, it was an 18-stage Nationals, and then it was a 20-something, and then it was a 28 all-division behemoth Nationals, and I just kept seeing this. I'm like, I'm just going to do it for cost. Right? Because whatever it costs, what it costs, and because knowing in advance and signing a contract on that would have been impossible. The requirements kept changing.
All right, fair enough.
TV-friendly walls or not, we had all these instructions. Make it TV-friendly. The Shooting USA guys want to, we don't know where because it was all divisions. I could not predict where the drama would be. On the last 2 or 3 stages.
Production, obviously.
Production. Well, I thought that was a done deal before they ever started, I heard. But.
Yeah.
By the way, I looked at your national stats, and I think you had 65 Charlies at the 2014 Nationals.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll try not to have so many this year.
Yeah.
This is being recorded before the 2015 Nationals, but it will air after. So people keep that in mind as you listen.
So, in summary on it, we were responsible in some ways because we didn't force the issue of having a contract. And I was communicating with 3 or 4 different people about the same project who weren't then communicating with each other on the USPSA side. So the cost ended up being a surprise to a couple of them, but it was all documented and we worked through it, and now we're good to go.
All right, so there's no bad blood between you and people at USPSA?
Not from my side. There might be from theirs.
They don't like you, that Ken Nelson a-hole?
I'm sure some people feel that way, but I did what I said I'd do.
I'll tell you what, Ken. You're sitting here. There's 50 people listening probably, and you've got an opportunity to personally attack anyone you want, and you're not going to take it. Well, that's mighty white of you, Ken. Thank
you. I don't personalize stuff. I just don't. You got to really smack me in the face to get that, because I've learned over the years that personalizing things just makes it worse.
No, I mean, you're being professional. I don't know if it's refreshing, but it's very adult.
Oh, thanks.
All right, let's talk about Practiscore, Ken.
Sure.
So, I can't remember when that came about, but I bet you can. When did Practiscore become a thing?
About a week after I did my first match as stats guy. Is when it happened.
It was that bad?
Yeah, our stats guy got cancer, and he had to bow out for a little bit. They knew I was a computer guy. They figured I had a computer, which was a big plus, because most of the club management at that time didn't.
They didn't have a computer?
Yeah, I mean, this was. Yeah, I mean, people that run shooting matches and clubs aren't necessarily.
When was this, like 1989?
No, this would have been 2000. Let's go with 2011.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So anyway, a computer, the ability to install Easy Win Score. So I said, yeah, I'll be happy to help. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, my wife Paula would love to do this.
Love to do stats?
Yeah, I figured I could hand her the score sheets and she would get it done. And she told me to go to hell. So I spent a larger part of a Sunday tapping in 400 or 500 score sheets, posted the results, promptly got flooded with emails for errors, data entry errors. And
But that's normal, yeah? Yes?
I think normal for paper entry. Yeah, it's quite normal.
What is it, on average, people fuck up like 1 in 300 keystrokes, something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's easily that, and or more, especially when you get later in the repetitive actions.
Yeah.
And the data set's smaller. So a keystroke you might not notice in an English document makes a lot of difference with delta to a chart, for instance, so that the magnitude of the error is more important. So anyway, I bought some palms and did the palm scoring, and that was actually the last paper match we ever did at my club. And that was 3.5 years ago.
Okay, so did you anticipate Practiscore? I would say it's more or less become the standard.
No, I wrote it for me. Like most good things that happen, when people need something and they build it themselves, that's entirely the story of Practiscore. What does Ken need today? What does Ken need this week? And the reason it's become popular is because a lot of people need what Ken needs, right? Because I run a club, I run an active club, I run large matches.
So what sort of functionality has been added to Practiscore over the years?
Well,
I mean, talk me through it, because it wasn't always right. Right now you can, it can update live more or less, right? When everything syncs, and it supports a lot of devices.
Right. The first thing that I did was I just wrote it for me. I had iOS developers, Apple developers on staff. I had one of them work as a moonlighting thing to knock it out in a couple of weeks. We did USPSA scoring. And then we quickly realized that it's a lot harder than it looks. The syncing part. The magic in Practiscore is the syncing. How do you sync all these different tablets with people tapping in all sorts of stuff? You have no control over what they're doing. How do you integrate it and make it accurate? So, you know, like if I just wrote a program to score one squad, we had that done in a couple days. Syncing is an ongoing thing. Essentially, it's going to be a project essentially forever.
Because of new devices coming online and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and new network connectivity. And it's just a hard problem. It's called a massively parallel distributed database. And that's really what we're doing, is making all the databases the same when they can be changed at any one time. So it's a pretty hard computer science problem.
All right, this reminds me of, what was the kerfuffle maybe a year or so ago about private data being in Practiscore or some kind of nonsense? I never understood what the problem was.
What would happen is people could sync and get the match from the cloud.
Okay.
And registration data was in there, right? So somebody's email or somebody's phone number, if the match was collecting that, could be done.
Okay, so that's...
So, you know, it's
not a good thing, I suppose.
No, it wasn't Social Security numbers or anything crazy like that, but it would have been any data that a match deemed necessary. So we took that out that week. It's actually coming back next week with the data sanitized. So you basically just get the information for shooting, division, name, member number. People like that because they can download it and kind of do their own what if.
Yeah.
What if Ben didn't win every stage? You know, that sort of stuff.
And then Hopkins would win them all.
Yeah. I think it's futile, but so then after that, it became, I was just writing it for myself, my club. I had no intentions of doing anything with anybody. But then Vegas people shoot with us, Kingman, Arizona people shoot with us, Phoenix people shoot with us, and they just loved it because we were giving them results literally at the last shot. at our club match. And they wanted it, and then it just sort of expanded from there.
Yeah. Okay, so it grew beyond your wildest expectations, you'd say?
Absolutely. I had no intention of anything like this when I started it.
How many different sports does it cover now?
Our commitment is if it's practical shooting, we do it.
Is it 10 or 12 or something?
Yeah, it's at least that. 10 or 12. It even covers trap and skeet, precision rifle.
So what are you getting paid for this, Ken?
Nothing. Not a zip. Nil.
It doesn't sound very smart to me.
I'm fortunate that I can have my discretions. It needed to be done. I was uniquely situated to get it done, and so I did it. Sometimes that's how things happen.
Definitely. All right, so where do you see Practiscore going from here? So for me, as just a shooter dude, I find it annoying that there's this big divide between what's on the USPSA site, which as far as club matches go these days, not a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because it'll just sit in Practiscore.
Right.
And then I'm constantly like I'm trying to look for results for this thing and it's okay, it's on Practiscore. Well, what's the name of the club? And you know what I mean? Like it could be a hassle to find it. You got to find them on Practiscore, or maybe they are on USPSA, and then major match results. It can take they'll put it up on Practiscore, then it takes a week, whatever, till they get around to putting it on USPSA. It's an issue. So where do you see this thing headed? Is it ever gonna be integrated into USPSA somehow?
It could have been.
The ship sailed.
No. I mean, it still can be. IDPA does it. Three Gun Nation does it. We have an API. In programming terms, an API is basically a way to get data.
Yeah.
And I gave them the API. It's over 2 years now.
Okay, so you've kind of given them.
Yeah. I mean,
That's what this is.
Yeah. All I ask is that when you push the button to post the scores, it goes to Practiscore.com. Because what I'm trying to create, like for my club, I don't want my club members to have to go here for the 3-gun score, here for their USPSA score, here for the Tuesday night steel score, here for the rimfire rifleman score. And I run a lot of stuff. I run 16 matches a month, right, just in my club. So I'd like, ultimately as Practiscore evolved, I wanted it to be a place where your shooting life, your competition life can be.
So it'd be on both Practiscore and USPSA.
Right, like it is on IDPA and 3-Gun Nation and any other sport that gives me that looks like they're a valid sport that's doing the right things.
So the ball is in USPSA's court to. Yeah.
And it's been an option for them for basically since we started. Basically, when we post a match, we will call their website and say, here's the data, and then they do with it what they want. That's been available, and that was supposed to be part of the tech project that kind of floundered, I guess, a year and a half ago. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or anything.
No.
It's hard stuff, but it's been available.
Well, is it hard? I mean, so if USPSA hired like a web dude or a computer nerd or something, could they figure this thing out?
Oh yeah, yeah. When I say it's hard stuff, I mean just getting a match and showing the results, that's not very hard. 3-Gun Nation figured it out. IDPA figured it out. The issue with USPSA is, I think what happened early on was there was a volunteer working who got sick, and that's perfectly understandable. And then they've had a web guy that they actually hired on board that works there full time, and he's just had other fires to put out. But
they have a full-time web dude?
Yeah. In fact, I think
what the hell are they doing? Their website still sucks.
Sometimes it's hard when you're doing software and you have a large body of users. Sometimes just maintaining and keeping them happy eats up your day and you can't move forward. I think that's probably where they've been kind of trapped in. So I don't know what the status of it is. I've heard that they've got They're contracted out and they're building something new. I hope that they contact me and work with me. The data's there. All I'm looking for is to have us have it and whoever else has a valid use for it. Like, I'm not going to let IDPA get USPSA scores, but USPSA certainly can have it, and vice versa and so forth.
So, long term, let's talk 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
Let's say Ken Nelson's sick of this Practiscore deal. Like, you're sick, like, of volunteering and managing this whole thing. What happens to it? So it sounds like you've got a bunch of disparate shooting sports, all have some sort of stake in Practiscore being functional, and maybe 10 years down the line it'll be integrated with USPSA really well. Or, well, maybe let's go 15. 15 years down the line, it'll be integrated with USPSA possibly.
Maybe.
And,
they could have it tomorrow. Just practiscore.com/USPSA.
They could have.
I mean, if they wanted that, they just need to call and ask. Tell me what they want.
Right. So, but what happens when Ken steps back? Is my question. Do you sell this thing? Do you charge like do you like put it to some guys and like charge a management fee or something? Like, how does it survive in perpetuity?
Right. One of the things that I learned early on is that clubs will spend money on steel, but they're not going to spend money on software. There's other people who have tried selling scoring software in the past in the POM world, and it failed miserably. So Practiscore, from my perspective, is always going to be free to the clubs, free to score. You have to buy a tablet, I guess, is really the only cost.
Yeah, but you're not taking any money.
I'm not taking any money. When we process registration fees, we don't take any money. It goes straight to the club minus whatever the credit card companies take. So, okay, how does that work, Ken? If you decide to not be generous in giving, what happens?
And honestly,
that's a good question.
You're not going to live forever. I mean,
well,
you know what I mean? Like, maybe you'll move on to something else, or like there'll be some other problems. And I would think Practiscore is the sort of thing that at some point it has to be paid for by someone, because the kind of stuff you're talking about where you're like, yeah, I had one of my programmers just do that stuff. Like, well, not everybody has programmers laying around that they can do stuff. So
no, I agree.
A bunch of Indian dudes in your basement that you get them to do stuff for you, or what?
Those spices smell bad. I rented an office building once to Indian programmers, and it was cool when I first went. Oh, that smells great. But like 6 months later, it wasn't smelling so great. At least not to my Western nostrils. So the thing on Practiscore is, if I decide not to do it, it goes open source, right? Which means we put the source code out, and programmers probably involved in practical shooting take it on and keep it going. And that's a model that's worked with thousands and thousands of other types of what I would call vertical niche software. It's not a word processor, it's not a spreadsheet, it's for a specific purpose. And that's actually how Practiscore works a lot now. The bulk of the people working on Practiscore are volunteers.
And they're shooters, yeah?
Yeah, they're shooters, they run clubs, they do stats, they have an interest, some are programmers, they contribute that way. Others are what we might call part of the beta team. They run a match, they run a sport, and they kind of help us eat our own dog food, which in the software world means you use your own stuff.
Yeah, so
that's the plan. Would I like to have it pay for itself? Yes, I would.
Well, how could you do it? You could serve ads on it or something? I'm trying to think of ways for it to make money.
Yeah, assuming that we're not going to charge clubs, right?
Of course.
There's really only two ways to do it. One is for the sports to help support it, and that would be nice. They've not shown a lot of interest in it, I think probably because they're getting it for nothing now. And when I first started, I wanted to do a consortium between USPSA, IDPA, Three Gun Nation, I-Corps, and all the big sports, NRA, and that way we could have one common scoring thing. But everybody was kind of parochial. What I would say is that if you think you're going to go write this, Don't. It's a lot harder than it looks. You think it's easy, but it ain't.
That was the latest on the board meeting, that they had expressed interest in creating their own scoring system.
Why? I mean, Practiscore is already up and running.
It doesn't make sense to me, but
I think
is there some beef with you? I mean, I'm not trying to like be an asshole about it, Ken, but like, if I'm sitting on the board for the USPSA, I mean, I wouldn't be thinking, well, let's create our own scoring solution, unless I was thinking, well, that Ken guy's a real turd, and I don't like him having Practiscore.
I don't know. I mean, obviously Phil and probably Kim are kind of unhappy with me over the payment stuff, but at the same time, you know, I don't talk to those guys very much. You know, I'm kind of sport agnostic. You know, I treat USPSA like I do IDPA, like I do Three Gun Nation. If they need help, I help them. If they change a rule, like carry optics, or there's a change on no penalty misses, I think a few months ago. Deep esoteric stuff, we just change it. But as to why they would want to do their own, I have no idea. I think that can only end in disaster, because it's a hard problem. You need to be, the people doing it need to be computer scientists.
And they need to be shooters, honestly.
And shooters.
That makes it a lot easier.
And to be perfectly honest, the people that would manage the project up at USPSA are not shooters.
well, none of them are there, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, I eat my dog food. I ran an area match on Practiscore before, you know, under provisional permission from the president. You know, I was the guy who went out there and took the risk and ran a 450-something purse level 3 match using Practiscore because I had to be first. And now it's you know, it's commonplace. But I think that type of organization, those type of people are who need to drive the tools that the clubs use. And you know, when I look at why Practiscore exists, it doesn't exist necessarily for the shooter. The shooter is getting side benefits. It exists for the match director. It exists for the guy running the club. And that's who gets the benefit every week. You know, I would either have to do it myself or find volunteers that would spend 6 to 8 hours per match entering scores in for our club matches. Now, some clubs have no trouble doing that, but I prefer to drive my volunteerism towards other activities that improve club infrastructure, that help me run better matches, have better stages, have more ROs, all that. If I can do stats basically for nothing, that's a win.
Well, that sounds entirely reasonable. Well, Ken, it's kind of, I mean, you're an interesting dude. I want to hear what you have to say. Is there anything else we should know about Practiscore, or something you want the members to know?
Okay. Well, we're about to introduce Practiscore Web 2.0. Actually, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after.
Okay, so this will be like we introduced it a month ago.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
So we'll know the success or failure of it by the time this happens.
What is Web 2.0? What is that?
Well, we've redone the results entirely. They're going to work better on mobile, and importantly, I mean, I do a lot of what I call over-the-shoulder testing, where I watch people without letting them know that I'm there use Practiscore. I watch them use the website. I watch them at lunch when they're using the app to try and look at scores, and I look at what they do, and everybody wants to see how they're doing against Ben Stoker, right? So we added in a compare shooters.
Oh, I see.
So Ben had 16 Charlies, and you had you know, 108, right? And that might be why you lost. That and the 80 seconds slower.
Jesus.
So so that's a big part of it. It's an entirely new results engine that's what we call responsive, which means that if you run it on an iPhone or you run it on Android or a tablet, it changes to adapt to the screen size. The other part of it is a system called clubs, which a lot of people have been using. If you register for a match, if you you know, if you're a match director, you're squatting and managing payments and other stuff, all that's the club system. And we're introducing a new version of that that I think is pretty nice. Basically, every club gets a web page.
Huh.
So if you go to practiscore.com/subs, you'll see the Southern Utah Practical Shooters page. You'll see all my matches that you can register for, every result. news. You'll be able to contact people, and that comes just by creating a club. I think right now there's 400 or 500 clubs created in that system now.
Excellent. All right, Ken. Finally, I want to know what it's like to run nationals. This just sounds interesting to me because you run a lot of club bullshit, which people. I mean, a lot of people run club matches, but not a lot of people get. I don't know if I want to say get the opportunity. Let's put it this way: not a lot of people are dumb enough to run nationals.
Yeah, well, nationals was exhausting, but it was rewarding. I mean, when you guys messaged and said it was the best one you'd ever been to, that was cool. That made me feel pretty good.
That doesn't come lightly, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I figured as much. I mean, you guys take this very, very seriously.
I do.
So, what goes into a nationals? It really depends on the type you're running and the nature of your club. But most nationals, I think, prior to the ones we ran, were largely people open the gates to the range, and USPSA sends people in, and USPSA people build and tear down the match. Ours was more of a hybrid, and I think that's actually kind of the reason that there ended up being payment issues, is because we essentially ran a turnkey match, right? Produced it for USPSA. We had very little involvement from anybody.
So did you design the stages?
We designed the stages, we built the stages, we built the props, we provided all build staff, we provided all stage support staff, and we provided, I think, 25 or 30 ROs from our club. And this is a town with a population of 65,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think my club has 30 shooters.
Right.
Let alone 30 ROs.
Well, if you look at our match, like our match this Saturday, we had 30 people for the match. It's summer. We lose population this summer because it's hot. But our volunteerism far exceeds the number of people that shoot regularly with us. And that's actually the secret to our club. We have, I'd say for Nationals 2014, well north of 100 people contributed to that match. Actually, north of 150 people, local.
Okay, so what was the thing that was the most work for the match?
By far, it was the building of the walls. I mean, like I said earlier, I have, just laying around, I have enough to run 14, 16 stage, full-on area match. I mean, all the bells and whistles. I've got that just laying about. But when you add an entire another area match on top of that, that's a huge construction undertaking. I like to say, once we learned we weren't getting walls from Tulsa, and that they wanted all the walls to be the same, I basically had to take out a bunch of the stuff we already had, which was solid. I think you remember from the first Nationals. Actually, I don't know if you were there.
I wasn't there for the first one.
Yeah, we had solid plywood walls. You couldn't see through them. Bad for TV. So then I ended up having to build, I don't know, 500 and some, those white walls that you saw. For
Yeah, those are
28
actually
stages.
quite nice.
And we built them to last, and because we want to give the USPSA a good return on investment. So now there's stuff that they can use when they come back in for other matches. So I like to say that in July and August we were the largest construction project in southern Utah. We had teams of people there every day. We had inmates. I use inmates a lot from the local jail. I had multiple teams of inmates out there every day.
And the first time you posted that, I thought that was a joke.
Explain that a little bit. I mean,
a lot of people haven't heard about this, Ken.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, we're right by a jail. And so I contacted the sheriff, and they have work parties to go out and clean. You see them on the highway and stuff. And turns out they're state inmates, so then we had to work with the state corrections to get permission for them to come to a shooting range. And it's a little bit complicated because, like, when they re-enter the jail, they have to get searched in a different way because like they could hide a bullet.
Really? You can have a bullet
In certain places. But the inmates love coming to the range. We give them donuts and Diet Coke and treat them human, and they work their butts off. They do so many things that I would never ask a volunteer to do.
Wait, what?
Like how? Or yeah, that's weird.
Let's move this plate rack. They just grab it and go. That's just a minor example. That's like 1/100th of a day when they're out. So we use them extensively for our large match builds, or when we have infrastructure projects. Like for instance, I've got tunnels through my berms because some of the matches we crawl through the berm. I didn't think twice. I didn't get a backhoe. I just said, yeah, put a tunnel through there. Boom. Later that day, I had a very nice tunnel that shooters could crawl through. So it's we have to be. It does affect the operation of the range, which I run the range also.
Do they have guards and stuff there with them? Obviously.
Pardon?
Do they have guards and everything with them?
Yeah, a policeman or a sheriff comes, deputy sheriff comes out. Now these guys are all in their last 6 months of jail. They're on basically an exit path out of state prison.
So if they fuck up there, they're kind of stupid.
Yeah, they sometimes we'll ask, oh, where's Joe? Oh, he had tobacco. It's not allowed in jail, and he's done. He's back up to the big jail at the point of the mountain up in Salt Lake, and he's doing hard time. And these guys, they did bad things. These are not minor crimes. These are murderers, bank robbers, drug pushers, pretty bad stuff. But some of them have been in 6 to 8 years by the time they come out to us. But it works. Work good.
Yeah, well, that's an untapped source of labor, I think, for a lot of matches.
And it helps a lot of volunteers. Our volunteerism increased because people came out knowing that they would get technical jobs, like run the screw gun, don't lift the boards, because the inmates do that. So it helps, and people were comfortable coming out because they know that we weren't going to burn them up. So it all kind of leverages together to create a happy environment that can create something like the Nationals that we do.
All right, and what bit of work did you run into for Nationals that was unexpected? Were you like, man, I didn't even know people had to do this, or something?
Well, the thing about Nationals, the thing about any major match for us, is that, like the 2013 Nationals, somewhere I have a picture of me standing in basically waist-deep water, tilting up a popper. We had a flash flood that flooded our entire range. All the bays that you were shooting in looked like swimming pools. And that was a week and a half before the 2013 Nationals. So I went and bought every pump that Home Depot and Lowe's had. I borrowed pumps from members of the club, and I ran generators for a week to pump those things dry so that you guys could shoot. That was definitely unexpected, because you saw where we live. It's the Mojave Desert. You do not expect swimming pools. In terms of the work, one of the things that a lot of people grouse about range masters and stuff. I don't. I love the range master corps at USPSA. Troy McManus, for example, he and I disagree on some things, but what I don't, I think we both agree that he knows shooting and he knows competition and the rules very well. Walking with those guys, Carl, Ray, walking the stages with those guys, I learned so much about how to avoid trouble. Because they really do care about not having you DQ. And now I actually have a little, people invite me to their matches to go and look at the stages and help them prevent problems. And all of it I learned from the Range Master Corps at USPSA. That they really know their stuff. So I did not expect that. I expected to be more of a logistics, dude. But to learn the shooting game and to learn match operation at that level was very helpful.
Yeah, a lot of those guys look at stages and they'll find something that they're like, well, some guy could go over here and shoot this target like this, and you're thinking like, well, who would do that? And they're like, trust me, someone will do it.
Yeah, they've been there, done it, seen it. I mean, some of the stuff shooters do is just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's retarded, a lot of it.
And,
I can vouch for that.
And we hate to do the forbidden action route. So basically, it's a little bit like software. You think of every possible path before some numbnuts does it, right? and you build it out. And that's one of the things that makes matches expensive. I hit the local car washes constantly to get barrels.
Well, is it expensive though to have a Nationals? I mean, it's a money-making proposition, yes?
From what I understand, most Nationals have lost money in the past. I think ours made a fair amount, especially since we filled up the pre-match. You know, the staff match, what you might call it. I call it the pre-match. To me, if I'm running by the rules, I'm going to put as many people as I can in it, right? So I think we added 150 full-paid shooters to that match, which is just pure profit.
Yeah.
And including some winners, some division winner. I think this one division winner and category winner came out of that match too. But if you're going to run it, I say fill it up.
Yeah,
It's just as easy to run a full match as a half full match.
Same cost too, right?
Exactly. If you got sunk cost, every shooter that signs up, every empty squad, every hole in a squad, it costs money and it messes up my timing because I'm a nut about time. You know, the matrix is king.
The squad matrix?
The squad matrix is king. If I have to change a stage to make the squad matrix work, the stage loses. And, because I back up from the shooter experience. Who likes to come around and see a 2-squad wait? Right?
Nobody.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah, nobody. And that's because too many match directors value the stage, or not telling Bob that we got to change the design he submitted. Everything has to synchronize, and little things add up. Like if it takes 10 extra seconds to get tape if they run out. All these things add up, and that's where I think my skill set and my interest drove having successful nationals and successful level 3 matches. I always back up from the smile on the shooter's face, and whatever I got to do that is what we do.
What major matches have you shot, Ken?
I've shot Area 2, Area 1, Nationals. Like I said, I've had a lot of health problems, so I haven't shot nearly as much as I would prefer.
You travel around with your kids sometimes?
I do. Yeah, we travel constantly.
A
lot of times the last 4 years I haven't been able to shoot because I've been recovering from various surgeries.
What shooting discipline do you like the most just for yourself? Like as a shooter, what do you like the most?
I like 3-gun. Outlaw multi-gun is by far my favorite. If it's in the pistol variant, I think USPSA has a good game.
But you've been running your own steel match as well, yeah?
Right. But I thought you were talking about traveling.
Well, I know. I'm just trying to get a sense for who Ken is as a shooter as well, because what your preferences are, kind of informs how you like to do things. So Hopkins.
I'm a social guy, so for me, shooting, since due to health, I'm pretty much capped out as good as I'm going to get. I know the technique really well, and I teach it, but I can't load my own magazines, right? And my thumbs don't work. I'm practically a gorilla, right? So, so certain high performance things are just physically beyond me. So for me, shooting is social. So any match that has thought reset out isn't wasting my time having me do stupid reset, and where I can talk to people, hang out with people, gives me time to have lunch or dinner with folks. That's a good match to me.
All right, and why don't you, just to kind of finish this thing off, why don't you tell people about your Steel Open match?
The Barry Steele Open.
Yes.
We've
No,
got a winner here talking with us.
correct. So what was that your brainchild? And then what was the match? Because I don't remember all the details that
Yeah.
Hopkins told me, but the scoring system was different. The format of the match was something I've never heard of before.
Yeah, basically, I'm a why choose kind of guy. I mean, I don't get into these religious things where this variant of the sport is better than that variant of the sport. I think that all of them, if they survive, have something to offer. So the Barry Steele Open basically says we're going to do all sorts of steel. We're going to do part-time steel like a pro-am. We're going to do static steel like a steel challenge. And we're going to do action steel, which is like our Tuesday night steel or what they run down at Rio in Phoenix. Basically USPSA with all steel. And it's really fun. I mean, and it's also more social because we can do things about reset to keep it to a minimum. And it's a why choose match. Now, in terms of the scoring, basically we kind of turn everything to percentages, and then the percent is your points.
Yeah. So you shot basically. You kind of shot 3 matches in one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they were all scored individually, and then the total that each shooter had was their final score.
Right. So we shot Steel Challenge in a raw time format, like it's meant to be shot, and then we basically Matt won that part. He's the 100%, and then we factored down, and those points are what you get for the match.
So, right. So for that part of the match, so then there's Steel Challenge, there's USPSA, and there's Pro-Am, yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Have you heard of anybody else doing something like this?
No, nobody can because they don't have the keys to the software.
Well,
that's one of the
just that. It's one of the things that they don't have the equipment either. I mean, how many people can set up a full Pro-Am match, a full USPSA Steel match, and then a full Steel Challenge match? I don't know of any.
Yeah, in fact, we could do 2 of those. I mean, I'm a bit of a collector. You know, we got a lot of stuff, and I lend it out. You know, it's kind of a regional resource. I take stuff up to Salt Lake for the state match. We lend stuff to Northern Arizona, to Vegas. But yeah, I've been, by running the large matches, the way I work it, if it's not a contract match like USPSA is, a third of the match goes to pay for the staff, a third of the match goes to revenue, goes to build the match, and a third goes to infrastructure so we can make better matches in the future. Whether that's new berms or more steel, I just that's what we spend it on. There's a plan.
So are you going to do like a Steel Open match? Are you going to do that format again?
Absolutely. It's too much fun not to do it.
All right, and do you think do you see that format catching on other places?
I'd like to see it. I think it's great fun, and it tests the different aspects that those games test. It really finds who's the best, right? And that's kind of the goal.
It is a very good overall determination, also.
Well, yeah, of course. How you say that now because you won, Hopkins.
Yes, it would.
I said that going into it. I mean, it's a totally different mindset you got to have for Steel Challenge than the Tuesday night Steel type shoot. Totally different.
Yeah, like just the draw. You know, the draw is what 45% or whatever of Steel Challenge. But over an action steel, just grab the gun when you're running somewhere. You know, it's very different mental and skill set. I like it. I would hope it takes off, and I put it into Practiscore so you can do it. And you know, a lot of that, it's part of the eating your own dog food. Like we just did the Tennessee Multi-Gun Series, 8 matches across 4 clubs, and Practiscore did a combined scoring series, and that was our test because we want to put that out and let other clubs do that. Other states, other groups of clubs. We're hoping to do one here in the Southwest. And what it does is it lets people visit other clubs and have a reason, because there were 4 multi-gun clubs in Tennessee. You had to shoot at least one match at each of those, and you had to have 6 matches total to compete in the series. So that's kind of stuff that having Practiscore run by shooters, I think is a good thing.
Well, I can't disagree with you there, Ken. Look, we've been going for like an hour almost, so I think it's probably time to call it. But thank you so much for coming on, Ken. And it's been really enlightening. You've got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about.
Thanks. And before I go, I want to say thanks to you. My son was 10 years old, and he found this game that I'd never heard of. And when he turned 11, he wanted to become Masterclass. And I went searching, and I found this guy on I think it might have even been a MySpace page. I don't know. It was something really hideous. But there's this guy named Ben offering up all these dry fire drills and talking about living the shooting lifestyle, and they helped. They helped. So I think a lot of people don't understand you, Ben, but I know you're a giver. And your books are awesome, and your videos are awesome. So thanks and your podcast is awesome.
I try to be a giver.
I wanted to butter up at the end, not the beginning, so people would think it was a fair interview. But so I just want to say thanks. I think you're doing good stuff.
Well, I appreciate that.
Wow.
I think you're doing good stuff, but way more good stuff. Because you actually do tangible shit. I just sit on the internet and talk.
So. We'll have to agree to disagree on that, but I think a lot of shooters are a lot better at this game because of what you do.
I know what am I doing to myself? I got to compete against these guys. They're killing me.
Somebody who kicks your butt could be reading your book right now. And they get that one thing.
No, I've met a lot of these guys. It's crazy. A lot of guys are shooting for like a year, and they're, really solid already. And it's in large part, I feel like it's my fault.
But tomorrow night, I'll run a 16-person Path to B class that we run, because I think B class shooters are kind of the heart of the game. They're the heart of volunteers. They RO matches. So I have an active program to build them. And first thing I do is say, get Ben's book, get Ben's videos, and then I'll try and help you out at the range.
Jesus. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sorry to embarrass you. I see your face turn a little red there.
Ah, damn. All right, and if you really want to get good, I mean really good at shooting, go to hopkinsshooting.com and send him an email and ask him all your questions, because he will help you. And if he can't, Tim Herron will, right?
There you go.